He's the former president and publisher of the Sun Herald, and now he's on the radio. Welcome to Coast View with Ricky Matthews on SuperTalk Mississippi Gulf Coast 103.1.
I hope you're having a great day. Welcome to Coast View, the show that celebrates the men and women who are making coastal Mississippi a better place to live, work, and play. We've got two great guests today. In the second segment, we're going to talk to the mayor of the great city of Diamond Head, Mayor Tommy Schaefer, about the history of Diamond Head, the projects they're working on these days, and especially the pandemic impact on the people of Diamond Head. I'm looking forward to that conversation. In the first segment, we've got my friend Chevis Swetman, the president of People's Bank. We had a great Coast View session with Chevis back in January. We kind of traced his life from Miramar Park in Biloxi to becoming the president and CEO of People's Bank. It was a terrific conversation. So if you missed it, we'll actually put a link to the video here at the SuperTalk Gulf Coast Facebook page. Chevis is a consummate community leader. He placed some big bets in South Mississippi along the way, especially in the early days of the casino industry. But he's someone who really understands the economic situation here. He keeps his finger on the pulse of coastal Mississippi. He's kind of the Warren Buffett of coastal Mississippi. Anyway, it's my pleasure to welcome Chevis Swetman. Chevis, how are you doing this morning?
Doing good, Ricky. Glad to be here.
Well, it's good to see you. Thanks for joining me. Hey, listen, I'm curious. What has the last, couple of months been like for you?
Well, it has been different. Basically, we had gone down for a family vacation down to Disney World while I was at the ICBA Bankers Convention, and I left on a Thursday, and on the way back, I found out that they were closing Disney World about 2 days later. And since that, everything has been, let's watch the nightly news. Let's see what is happening. What are people talking about? What are they doing? What do they need? And it's been a game of catch up till about maybe this past weekend. After that, when they started sheltering in place about the first part of April, things really started getting sort of tight. And very early on, we made the decision here at the bank, if people can't go to the small businesses that are there, the small businesses are going to have a hard time paying their loans. So we went into loan extension mode because of this, of the virus situation. And so we think we've handled that. And now the next thing everybody is talking about is what to do with the PPP loans, the Payment Protection Plan. And that's what we've been really working on for about the last 30 days. Basically, that Payment Protection Plan is just how to get money into the hands of the small businesses. And between you and me, I don't consider the LA Lakers a small business, or Ruth Chris Steakhouse a small business. So, there's been a lot of obstacles to overcome, but I think it's starting to happen. We've been playing catch up because the SBA keeps changing the rules. They weren't set up to begin with. And those of us in the banking industry, that does not come as any surprise. So, but I think finally they've got it caught up. The big issue is going to be, we hope people understand that this is to reimburse the employees that have lost their jobs.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's interesting. No big surprise in terms of the SBA trying to like refine it and respond to the challenges that they're facing with whatever the new regulations need to be around it. Because we saw this after Katrina. I mean, when you're developing, new grant programs or whatever they might be that have never been done before, and there's a rush to get the money in the hands of those that it's developed to help, it's probably better to have a wide aperture in the beginning, and as you get a little bit further down the road, you kind of narrow the aperture a little bit. I do think that one of the things that the Trump administration is really focused on now is we know the ones like the LA Lakers and some of the universities that have these, $1 billion, foundations. We know about them, but there's a lot of them probably that shouldn't have gotten the money. And so I think what they're going to do is they're going to focus very specifically on doing some kind of back end auditing. And I bet what they're able to do, either voluntarily or through their auditing, they're going to find some additional money that can be used for this program. But yeah, it was meant for businesses to protect paychecks, and it was meant for businesses, small businesses that we have here in coastal Mississippi, the backbone of the American economy. And the fact that some well-heeled corporations took advantage of the moment because they could. I mean, the regulations enabled them to be able to do it. But I think that they understood the essence of the program is to protect paychecks and small businesses. And I think most of them will kind of agree to this in the long run. But it's just kind of where we find ourselves, isn't it?
Yes, it is. And the big thing there is there's still some flaws in the program. If you're in the restaurant business, if you're in a bar or something like that, this money, and you've just got your funding for this program, now you've got 2 months in which to try and expense out and pay your employees so you can possibly get a forgivable loan. The problem here is a lot of people can't pay their employees because nobody can go to work and nobody can go to your establishment. So hopefully they'll be able to work that out.
It's a really, really incredible place we find ourselves in. There's a lot of work to be done to begin to start things back up. But before we kind of move to what are those things, what does that look like? What does restarting the economy in coastal Mississippi look like? Let me real quick kind of focus just a little bit. How are your employees doing? Are some working from home, some working from offices? Tell me about how that's working out.
Well, what we've done is at least the banks around the state's been conferencing. And so very early on, most of the banks just shelter their lobby. And if you needed to get a loan or something like that, you make an appointment and come into the bank. And then we've been operating out of our drive-up windows. And so what we did is we divided our branch personnel and our back office personnel into 2 teams, an A team and a B team. Not that we, couldn't handle it, but we were worried about exposure. What happens if an employee gets a virus? What happens if a family member gets a virus? What are we going to do? And so if we had everybody working together in the large groups, one infected person can knock out a whole building worth of people because you don't want to spread it any further. So hopefully we've been very, very fortunate. And as we're like everybody else, we're concerned about this point going forward. We're all concerned about the social distancing, washing the hands. I don't think I've washed my hands or put Purell on my hands as much in my entire life, but these are the things we've got to live with, and hopefully everything's going to be working out okay, especially after they lift the shelter in place.
Yeah, no doubt. So you see, you've really had your finger on the pulse of a lot of businesses in coastal Mississippi, small and large. Some are operating, some are not. But I guess you're seeing whatever sector they're in, they have different sort of startup plans depending on the sector. Casinos, obviously,
right.
Really, really comprehensive plan they've got to develop, and hopefully we can see them. We'll talk about them in the second segment. But you're seeing each industry with their own set of challenges, their own plans for restarting. But do you see that's where the mindset is? How do we begin to do this as the governor begins to turn the volume up slightly?
Yes, I think that's going to be very important. It goes back to how you go to church. I hadn't been to church in 5 weeks, and they said, well, you could see your preacher on the Facebook page. That ain't going to happen. It's like watching Jimmy Swaggart on a. No, nothing against my preacher. I just think that's just not the way it's supposed to be. And then I just miss the fact that if I want to go out and get a burger and a beer, I want to get a burger and a beer, and I don't care if I'm one of 10 people in a restaurant or something like that. Just want to be able to socialize, get out. My wife and I maybe do a little yard work, not that much yard work, but, everything is different, and we've got to gradually move forward. Like the opening of the beaches this past weekend was really great. The cars were there. but the people were still doing the social distancing and stuff like that. So I think everybody is aware, and hopefully we can manage this thing going forward. The things that I'm really concerned about is travel. When do you want to get up in an airplane and fly somewhere? The answer is not going to be yes, probably going to be no.
Yeah. You know what's interesting? You mentioned the beach. There was a story in the Washington Post over the weekend that said that beaches become flashpoint of coastal states opening. California protesters defy governor's closure. It's really unfortunate that beaches have become the place, sort of the battleground. And I think if coastal Mississippi continues to do what you just talked about, and, Fofo said this, 99% of the people are doing it right. There might be 1% that are congregating, and they don't understand if they congregate and they start an outbreak, it could cause us to be set back. But if we can get we've got a big beach, 26 miles here in Harrison County, and then we've got Jackson and Hancock County. We've got a scenario here where if we focus on creating a safe place for people to be able to come and enjoy social distancing and enjoy the outdoors, that they might be able to, I think we create that impression, people are going to come back here. Let's do this, Chevis. We'll continue this part of the conversation when we come back from the break, and we'll talk a little bit more about the casinos, the economic situation, and what does it look like going forward. We'll be back right after this break with Chevis Swetman from People's Bank.
Follow SuperTalk Mississippi Gulf Coast 103.1 on Facebook. Facebook.com/SuperTalk MS Coast 103.1.
Talking to the people that help make the coast such a unique place to live. This is Coast View with Ricky Matthews on SuperTalk Mississippi Gulf Coast 103.1.
Welcome back to Coast View. We've got Chevis Swetman here, the president and CEO of People's Bank. And in the second segment, coming up here after this one, we have Mayor Tommy Schaefer from the great city of Diamond Head. Looking forward to that conversation. When we went to break, though, we were talking about the story from the Washington Post talking about America's beaches becoming sort of the battleground for coronavirus. I think partly because when people look down onto the beaches, they can see people and they see maybe family units together. And their read on that is people aren't practicing social distancing. As you drove down the beach this weekend, what did you observe, Chevis?
Well, I drove down the beach, but I saw it all day long from my front porch. There was plenty of cars parked on the beach. Most people, I'd say 90% of the people were trying to practice the social distancing. The ones that didn't looked like they were family units, a mother, a father, a child, maybe a grandparent. They were out there enjoying themselves, and I think that's going to be a good starting place for recovery down here. I think that we got 26 miles of beach. You can have plenty of people on there, and I think that most people are obeying the rules, so to speak.
Milton Segura was said early on. I talked to him really, really early in this process, and he was already, through the various tourism organizations, coming to the reality that with 80% of the visitors to South Mississippi driving here, only 20% flying here, that was going to create a real opportunity for us to drive-in market. And so the point he was making is that with Linda Hornsby's work in the Hotel Motel Association, focusing on making sure we have clean, safe rooms, and then the beach being a clean, safe place, and then all the other efforts is going to be happening here to create not only the impression, but the reality that people can come here and it might be different, but it's going to be safe. And that's going to really spur the visitor who drives here to want to come here. So it's going to be, it's good to see that there was so much alignment around this early in the process. And now that the beach is back opened again, one of the things, somebody took a picture that from down on the beach, looking down the beach. And if you zoom in a little bit, it makes it look like everybody's, shoulder to shoulder. But when you're from your doorstep of your house, you can see that people are properly spaced out in family units, and hopefully everyone will continue to do that. It's going to be a real asset for us. Right. Chevis, I want to play something for you. I had Dr. Nicholas Conger, who's an internist who specializes in infectious diseases, on the show, and we talked a little bit about the Sweden model. I want you to hear this, and then we'll talk about it on the other side. Go ahead, Kyle.
Absolutely. I'm a big fan of what Sweden had done. If I had crafted a plan, I kind of would have tried the Sweden model. And I'm glad Sweden tried it, so we have something to compare. And if you look, their rates of death are slightly higher than other European countries, are actually lower than some of the European countries, slightly higher than ours. If you look at deaths per million. But if you look at number of people infected, they're getting this cadre of young people infected, so that Sweden will not, I don't believe, have a second wave because they're all going to catch it during the first wave. When I say they're all going to catch it, they've done an excellent job of keeping the older and the vulnerable people separated. And that's what we have to do as part of our plan.
Yes.
But they're not even wearing masks.
Yes.
I think if we come out of this with a Sweden-type situation where we keep the older people still under isolation, and we keep the people with multiple health problems, the vulnerable people isolated, let everyone else out. But with the addition of wearing masks and then with that social distancing indoors, I think which is even stricter than Sweden. I think we have a really good chance of doing a good job with this. I really do.
So, Chevis, I think Dr. Conger makes a really good point. I think what's happening here is what I would say is as a Sweden model on steroids. That's kind of what's happening, I think, with the governor and what the president is wanting us to do. Protect the vulnerable, protect the older, obviously. Really work hard to these long-term care facilities. It's amazing to me that anyone could die in a long-term care facility. Over 12,000 people have died in those facilities. I can't get my head around how we would not have had battle plans in place to deal with that, but hopefully they're doing that now. And then let the economy start to come back. If you take the Sweden model and add social distancing and face masks to that, we got a chance to do this. If you look much into this, and what's your thoughts about it?
Well, I've got a workforce that's 80% women. And when they don't have daycare facilities available to them, schools available to them, that makes operations very, very difficult. And what I really haven't seen any clear delineation is you don't hear about that many deaths from the young children,
Yes.
6 to maybe 16 years old. And I would like to see something more clearly defined in that area, because if you're not having these deaths and these young, why not start opening the schools on a gradual basis so that, they can get some nutrition, they can go back to school, they don't have to worry about being developmentally delayed and stuff like that. So I don't know. I have not seen the numbers on it, but I'm pretty much in agreement that maybe having people back in schools and, your universities, your elementary schools, your high schools on some type of plan, but let's do a little science behind it. And that would be a good place to start opening back up.
What Dr. Conger talked about is herd mentality, when people get it and then develop a resistance to it from that point forward. That obviously younger people who do not have pre-existing industry and conditions are could be even asymptomatic. But if we could get the population to 60% having got it, it's a lot easier to suppress the disease under those circumstances. So it's going to be a lot of conversation about this as we go forward, and I'm really hoping that we can find what the happy medium is, because the reality is, until we get a vaccine, we're in a situation where we've got to learn to live with it. So what do you think about the ongoing economic damage and recovery? When you think about this, what do you think about?
Well, I'm in the school that the cure is actually worse than the disease. You can compare this virus to the flu, and it's already surpassed the flu. But the real issue here is, what about the people that have lost their jobs? And I'll speak a little bit about the casino industry. That's about 28,000 employees by the time you talk about the casino workers, the hotel workers, the restaurant workers, their staff, their guests that come in. Well, these people haven't had a check in maybe about a month. How much longer can they go without a check? If they're renting an apartment, they've got to pay for the apartment. If they're buying a house, they got to make a house payment. So hopefully we can get this thing moving forward in some plan that, yes, we can make this thing move forward. Yes, we can grow it. And I think there's an opportunity, right? Every time you look and see a roadblock, I think you need to look at that roadblock and say, hey, this might be an opportunity. Maybe if we can open up properly with the right things, that people will probably might want to come visit us rather than go to New Orleans. Right now, I don't know if anybody that's going to say, wow, I want to take my vacation in New Orleans right now. But yeah. I think if we play our cards right, we can be a welcome area for people to come back, take a day or two off. It's just like after a hurricane. You work like a dog for 6 to 8 weeks, then you're ready for time to relax. And if we manage this thing properly, they'll want to come back.
I've had good conversations recently on this show with Larry Gregory from the Casino Operators Association, and then I had Michael Sunderman in the last day or so. And there's a tremendous amount of brain power around the world in the casino industry, because if you think about it, every brick and mortar casino organization in the world right now is dealing with how do you reopen in a safe way. Where Las Vegas has already said that they're not planning to reopen anytime soon, because anywhere where the primary traveling, the way people get there is through air, and then the amount of congestion that is there, you're not going to see Las Vegas open up real quickly. But that in other words, it creates a great opportunity for us here in coastal Mississippi. If we can find a way to do it in a safe way, it's going to be different. But if we can do it in a safe way, we might be able to really supercharge our recovery maybe a little bit faster than some of the other communities are. That's the way you're looking at it as well, huh?
Absolutely.
So I think we won't know until we start. And I think the reality is, we got to get started somewhere. I think the governor's slowly but surely turning the knob back up, and we'll work together to figure that out. We're coming to the end of our time today, Chevis, but I'll come back to you in a couple of weeks, and we'll touch base with you and see how things are going. I appreciate the leadership role that People's Bank has played in helping keep small businesses open. The payment delay program that you put in place early on, I'm sure your customers have really appreciated that. And thank you for your leadership in the community.
Well, thank you, Ricky. Always glad to be here.
Okay, buddy. Take care. This has been Chevis Swetman, President and CEO of People's Bank. And we'll be back in just a second.
You can also listen live to SuperTalk Mississippi Gulf Coast 103.1 on your Amazon Alexa devices. Once you've enabled the skill, just say, Alexa, open SuperTalk Mississippi Gulf Coast.